Today, for an organisation to survive and prosper, there are 4 things that it must be able to control: production, quality, costs, and accidents, and not one to the exclusion of another. In the past, safety has been very often regarded as a necessary evil, a cost to add to the overall operational costs, or in other words, an adjunct to production. It was often seen as a luxury item, which was given token attention only when time permitted. Safety at work, if properly implemented and practiced, will contribute to an organisation's financial viability, and it will demonstrate a commitment to the most valuable asset of any organisation: its people. Let's start our look at safety awareness by first looking at the accident. An accident is an unplanned and undesirable event which interrupts normal activity. Accidents can be almost instantaneous or can occur over an extended period of time. For example, chronic illness from exposure to chemicals. Accidents may cause personal injury, damage to plant and equipment, both or neither. Accidents can also include near-miss incidents. Accidents usually occur as the result of the combination of a number of contributory factors. Factors including environmental conditions, such as fumes, excessive noise, extremes of temperature, and inadequate illumination. The layout of the workplace and the design of tools and equipment can also have a significant influence on the frequency of accidents. There is, however, one constant factor involved in every accident: the human factor. Every single accident that occurs has at least one person directly or indirectly involved. Indirect involvement includes such things as faults with the original design of a piece of equipment, inappropriate purchasing decisions, and even the behaviour of fellow individuals in the workplace. Direct involvement in accidents can often be the result of one of the following: fatigue, stress, taking shortcuts, lack of experience, lack of training, lack of concentration, not wearing appropriate personal protective equipment, using the incorrect tool, and not following work practices. As you can see, the list can go on, but the important message here is that we see why and how accidents occur. The real question is, what can we do to reduce accidents? And the answer to that question starts with everyone becoming safety aware. Safety awareness is all about understanding the need to prevent avoidable accidents. And there are 3 compelling reasons why every organisation and every individual must accept accident prevention as a vital element of all activity in the workplace. And they are humanitarian, economic, and legal. For individuals, accidents can cause minor and major illnesses and injuries. And of course, accidents can kill. The results of accidents can include physical and psychological pain, loss of income, and loss of job security. An accident can lead to a change of lifestyle that can be devastating for an individual and often for a whole family. Organisations face loss through absenteeism, higher accident compensation premiums, and lost productivity. Also, effects on morale and psychological problems affecting staff as the result of a serious injury or death of a fellow workmate. The so-called hidden cost of accidents includes stopped production, spoilage of materials, damage to plant and equipment, replacement of staff, training and retraining, and retooling and redesigning. These hidden costs are estimated to be between 5 and 7 times the direct or insured costs. Governments around the world have also recognised the costs, both human and financial, involved in occupational accidents, and have added to the need for employers to act to create safer workplaces by introducing legislation. Much of this activity has occurred during the last 2 decades. The cost to the community at large, through expenses paid for by government agencies, include social security payments to people injured in accidents but not adequately covered by other insurance, aid to dependent families where income falls below a minimum level, payment to fire, police and other departments for the employment and operation of personnel engaged in hazardous activities and emergencies, payments to legal personnel relating to court proceedings, preparation and issuance of laws, standards and regulations and their administration. Clearly, it is in everybody's interest to accept safety as an integral part of modern work practices. Reducing both the physical and psychological costs of accidents is simple common sense. Reducing injuries and deaths is at the very least a moral obligation. Occupational health and safety is a three-way responsibility. It must be a team effort. Commitment must exist throughout the organisation, starting with top management. The organisation must accept responsibility to have in place the procedural mechanism to create and maintain a safe work environment for all of its employees. Personally, everybody in the workplace must accept that they are vital in the safety process. They must look after themselves and their fellow workmates. And finally, the continue its role to police minimum standards of acceptable safety practice by continuing to introduce and enforce safety legislation. Along with advances in science and technology, we have seen advances in the recognition of many of the causes of occupational accidents. Inhalation and absorption of chemicals, exposure to radiation, and fire management are just 3 examples that highlight many recent advancements. We've come a long way from the canary in the mine to detect methane levels. This growing awareness and knowledge has seen occupational health and safety develop as a fundamental right in much of the industrialised world at the end of the 20th century. As we have already said, safety starts with commitment. And the first step in the commitment to safety is to have a goal. A written organisational safety policy is the starting point for any successful safety program. Become familiar with this policy. It is important to know your organisation's philosophy and direction in safety. Let's now have a brief look at some of the key areas in safety that everybody should be aware of. Clearly, as we've just seen, no workplace can be 100% safe. There are always risks present. We must act on a continual basis to identify each and every risk, and only then are we in a position to control our environment to make it as safe as possible. Call it what you will, but the recognition, evaluation and control of hazards is the fundamental cornerstone of occupational safety today. This principle of recognition, evaluation and control of hazards has led to many job functions having written safe work procedures. The hazards have been recognised or identified, in many cases by trained and experienced personnel, who have developed a strategy to safely carry out a particular job function. A safe work procedure will take into account the hidden risks, things that to an untrained eye may go unnoticed. For example, toxic fumes from an odourless gas. It is of paramount importance that laid down safe work procedures are followed by everyone in the workplace. There's no room for the old adage, "It won't happen to me." And equally, the sissy syndrome should be relegated to a thing of the past. The implementation and the continual upgrading of safe work procedures is basic to occupational health and safety management. All areas of the workplace, from the office to the factory floor to the vehicle, present a myriad of safety risks. But one thing that every job has in common is the risk associated with manual handling. Regardless of your job, you'll be involved to some degree or other in manual handling. A ream of paper, a computer, files, a chair. Moving these items is often just as likely to cause a problem as constant manual handling tasks in areas like warehousing and dispatch, where they're used to handling loads on a regular basis. So what are the basic elements we should all be aware of when handling a load of any description? Just like all other hazards, there must be a strategy in place to control manual handling hazards. With manual handling, the approach is relatively simple. We can ask a series of questions. Must the load be moved? With proper planning and organisation, many manual handling tasks can be eliminated. Must a load be lifted? Some loads can be slid, pushed, pulled, rolled, poured or pumped, removing the need to lift. Can it be moved mechanically? If possible, use a crane, forklift, winch or hand truck to handle the load. Can the load be reduced? Break a load into 2 or more components if possible. Can assistance be gained? Some loads require a team to handle the size, bulk or weight. And finally, whether assistance is available or not. There is one last question which must be asked. Is the load too heavy to lift safely? Don't lift a load that's too bulky, too awkward, or is not within your comfortable lifting capacity. As lifting and carrying is involved in about 70% of all manual handling tasks, let's take a brief look at the correct procedure we should employ. The first step is preparation. Make sure the path is clear of obstructions. Next, check the load for sharp edges and things like staples. And then size up the load. With this step, we are trying to ascertain the weight and whether this falls into the lifting capacity of the person performing the task. We can size up the load by moving it from side to side, or in the case of a box, the details as to the contents and weight may be on an information panel on the side. As a general rule, the front foot should be beside the object and, if possible, pointing in the direction of travel. The back foot should be slightly behind and hip width from the front foot. This achieves a stable base and allows for an even distribution of weight. Bend your knees to get down to the load and use your legs to lift the load. This way, the thigh and leg muscles are used, and these are the strongest part of the body. Ideally, with the proper hold, the hand should be diagonally opposite for security and comfort. The full length of fingers and, if possible, the palms of hands should be used to avoid fatigue. Make your back as near to straight as possible. Raise your head with the chin in just before lifting, as this will help you keep your spine straight. During the lift, keep your arms as straight as possible and your elbows into the sides. Don't change your grip while carrying and directly face the spot on which the load will rest. It is also important to remember when lifting and carrying to avoid twisting at all times. Twisting, even with very light loads, is the cause of many muscle, ligament and disc injuries. Always move your body rather than twist. This often will require you to stand, but the added effort could well prevent a lifetime of back problems. A poorly maintained work area could be a potential minefield. Greasy floors, offcuts, boxes, leads, tools and other objects that block walkways and aisles can lead to mishaps if they are not cleaned and cleared on a regular basis. Good housekeeping is the ongoing maintenance of all work areas and access ways. It is more than just having a pleasant environment to work in. A clean, neat and orderly workplace is a key factor in accident, injury and fire prevention. Good housekeeping practices, both indoors and outdoors, reduce the danger of fire simply because they are time-proven methods of controlling the presence of unwanted fuels, sources of ignition and obstructions. There must be an ongoing effort to ensure that flammable materials and liquids are stored correctly. Materials stored in a haphazard manner compound the housekeeping problem. Disordered storage lends itself to the accumulation of debris and rubbish in neglected corners. Flammable waste must be removed for disposal rather than being used to clutter work areas. Emergency exits and all stairways and landings must be kept free of obstructions at all times. Good housekeeping practices will also reduce the likelihood of injuries caused by protruding objects and will reduce the number of slips, trips and falls incidents. Many accidents occur because of the incorrect use of tools and equipment. Remember the basic rules. Always use the correct tool for the job. Always ensure tools and items of equipment are in good condition. And finally, only use tools to perform the tasks they were designed for. There are a number of specific safety procedures that may apply to your particular job function, such as lockout-tagout, the need to refer to material safety data sheets, or the steps required to enter and work in a confined space. There are also a number of procedures that all in the workplace must become familiar with, and they are learning the meaning of safety signs and symbols, being familiar with appropriate firefighting equipment and understanding firefighting techniques, understanding your role should an evacuation of your workplace become necessary, and finally, what you could and should do in any emergency situation. Finally, let's take a brief look at the role of personal protective equipment in modern occupational health and safety philosophy. There are 4 different situations where the wearing of appropriate personal protective equipment is vital. During what could be described as normally hazardous operations, such as using electric hand tools or welding. During investigations and corrections where, for instance, the levels of contaminants may be unknown. In emergencies, where there are simply unknown risks. And finally, in designated areas, which are identified by safety signs or detailed in safe work procedures, where the wearing of personal protective equipment is used as a last line of defence should an accident occur. So, what is safety awareness? It's a responsibility, a commitment, an obligation. It's understanding that hazards exist and a willingness to contribute to control these risks. It's common sense, teamwork and safe work procedures. New methods of production, new equipment, new processes and new products must lead to new and improved safety procedures in the years to come. As we said at the beginning of this program, for an organisation to survive, it must be able to control production, quality, costs and accidents. Learning to control accidents at work has a major side benefit. As we all know, accidents occur outside the workplace. Many accidents occur in and around the home. If we take the opportunity to learn the skills of recognition, evaluation and control of hazards at work and apply exactly the same principles off the job, we can help prevent injuries and illnesses to our children and families. The costs of accidents in anybody's language is too high to ignore. Safety awareness is the first step in accident prevention.